Hey everybody, Coach Toolshed here, and today's video is not going to be the 1000th YouTube video that you've watched this week discussing G2A and their dirty practices. No, that's not going to be the purpose of today's video. Today we're going to be discussing our old friend Sean Murray. Of course, a new No Man's Sky update's going to be coming out. The media is hyping up as being highly anticipated, and so once again we have to turn to Sean Murray, whose redemption story just captivates the heart of gaming media everywhere. And of course we have to forget about the fact that the game still, now 3 years later, is still waiting on updates to provide some of the features that were promised for many years before the game actually came out. That's right, we are almost 3 full years since the launch of No Man's Sky. Just a couple weeks away in August, we'll commemorate the 3rd year anniversary, and we're all sitting patiently waiting. And of course, Sean Murray has some sage wisdom for other game developers when they're coming out with a rough launch. And right off the bat, I want to say, and this is going to sound a little bit odd maybe, but the fact that Sean Murray and the company actually took the time to fix the game, actually, well, it benefited them and it benefited the game and their own reputation moving forward. It really didn't help the game industry at all. In fact, it actually is hurting the game industry even as we speak today. Because No Man's Sky is one of those games that people point to. Whenever one of these live service game comes out, or one of these big games that's been hyped up beyond the heavens comes out, and everyone's all hyped for it, and they just want to sit there and talk about how great the game is, and then when the game comes out, it's really not as good as they thought it was. What we hear all the time now is, well, No Man's Sky turning things around, so of course this company's going to do it. Of course Game X is also going to turn things around because, heck, No Man's Sky did it. So actually, by fixing the game, they have provided a template of excuses for both fanboys and any developer that wants to use it, when they can just be like, well, look at these other games. Similar to how Todd Howard just a few weeks ago tried to use Elder Scrolls Online as an example of, well, that game turned things around, so heck, why can't we? Well, that's the problem with No Man's Sky, is that even though, like I said, it helps the game No Man's Sky, it doesn't help the conversation around any other game, because now developers just launch broken games and try to use past games, the rare exceptions that somehow turn things around, and use those to say, look, well, we're obviously going to turn things around. I mean, heck, look at No Man's Sky. And I know the popular thing to do here on YouTube and in the mainstream media is to praise Sean Murray now and act like he has just done everything exactly right by quote-unquote fixing the game, even though I would contend that the game still is not that great of a game. I will say it is objectively better than it was when it came out, when it launched. It looks better, it runs better, although still runs poorly. And the fact is, though, I still don't think that this is a very good game in any stretch of the imagination. It just went from one of the worst things I've ever played into just sort of a monotonous, relatively boring resource grind. It's a resource grind game for the sake of being a resource grind. I find very little enjoyment in this game, but that's really besides the point. What I want to discuss is Sean Murray, first and foremost, coming out, because in this interview, something that most people aren't really talking about is one of the first things he mentioned. Once again, something he mentions in every interview now is how he discusses about how naive he was going into E3, and how he didn't realize how important E3 was and the reach that it had. He somehow was trying to claim that as a game developer who was high profile enough in the industry to be invited on stage by Sony in their showcase 3 years in a row, he's going to sit here and still today try and claim that he was so naive about E3, and he didn't realize that when he was making promises on stage, that he wasn't just talking to the people in the room, that he was making the promise to millions of people around the globe. Now, I'm sorry if I'm not going to buy that little aspect of the pity party, that somebody who's intelligent enough to lead a small team that can create really any video game that actually runs properly, let alone one that does have some sophisticated algorithms designed around the procedurally generated planet of No Man's Sky. I don't think Sean Murray is a stupid person. So for him to try to sit here and spin this tale still that he was just a babe in the woods and completely naive as to how important E3 was, I'm sorry, Sean, that's utter nonsense. I'm not that stupid. I'm not going to buy into it. I don't know why anyone else would. Everyone knows what E3 is. You can't tell me that someone who's so embedded in the industry as to be an actual game developer doesn't understand the consequence of E3. If you want to even try to say that when he first showed up at E3 in 2014 that he was just kind of dazzled by it and didn't really know what to expect and maybe didn't understand the gravity of what E3 actually represents the first year, I still don't believe it, but okay, I might give you that. But then when you went back up on stage, Sean, in 2015, you didn't understand it by then? What about in 2016? Did you understand it then, Sean? Your third straight year on stage with a showcase presentation for your game. You didn't pick up by then the fact that you were on late night talk shows, which no game developer ever does. You didn't understand the message you were getting across. That's really strange, because even at E3, just mere weeks before the launch of your game, you were still peddling your lies and your nonsense. And I'm sorry. You don't seem like you're a completely bad guy, but I don't really know you personally. I just know you from your media experience. And what I know is that you were misrepresenting your game 8 short weeks before it actually launched. You were up on stage at E3 just peddling lies, which we all know is what E3 is built on anyway. But the fact of the matter is, you can't tell me that you knew that your game was coming out in 2 months and you didn't know it was going to have all these issues. You didn't know that you weren't going to be able to deliver all these features. And it wasn't until right before the game launch that you put out your little warning flag letter like, oh guys, don't be too hyped for our game. It might not have everything you're looking for. And that's a pattern that we've seen now repeated for years on end with other developers. We've seen the same stuff with Fallout 76 right before the game launched, after hyping the game for months, telling us how great it was going to be. The eve of the launch, we get this little press statement. Oh, guys, just so you know, it might be a bit of a bumpy launch. And then BioWare did the exact same crap with Anthem. And it's interesting that those two games come up, because those are the two games that you're going to see in every headline this week discussing Sean Murray. Sean Murray has a message for the creators of Fallout 76 and Anthem. Well, Sean, that's quite a lot of audacity. You think you're going to spin some sage knowledge on people. Let me explain. I've broken this down before, but let me explain the one massive difference between the situation with Sean Murray, No Man's Sky, and Hello Games, and developers like BioWare and Bethesda when it comes to Fallout 76 and Anthem. There's a massive thing that people like to leave out of the equation here. Everyone likes to give credit to Sean Murray for fixing the game, quote unquote. But what they like to ignore is the fact that Hello Games didn't have a choice. They could either never make another game again and try to sell it to the public, because they wouldn't be able to, or they could buckle down and fix the game. After selling millions of copies with a very small team, and the company is now flush with cash, they have the luxury of taking their time and actually putting some updates into the game, actually making some improvements, doing some stuff that people actually wanted, delivering on some of the stuff that they said they were going to. Like I said, we're 3 years out, and they still have not delivered some of the stuff that was promised for years on stage by Sean Murray. And so, I'm sorry, I'm not going to sit here now and praise the company for doing that. They had to do that in order to have a company. There would be no Hello Games moving forward if they didn't take the time to make this game. Now, they could have just packed up and take the money and run, and I know that's the argument. Yes, they could have. But like I said, there would be no more games from Hello Games. They wouldn't be able to go back out on stage at E3 and try to peddle us anything, because nobody would have taken them seriously if they didn't take the time to do that. And the one key difference when it comes to a company like Hello Games and BioWare and Bethesda, the massive difference is BioWare doesn't need to worry that Anthem was a failure, because they already have people salivating for Dragon Age 4. They already have people who don't apparently have any memory longer than a week, because they'll forget about Anthem. They'll forget about Mass Effect Andromeda. And they'll just put their blind faith in the fact that somehow Dragon Age 4 is just going to be a great game. And the same thing goes with Bethesda. You already have people salivating, speculating, panting heavily for Starfield. Doesn't matter that Fallout 76 was a huge bust, and that Todd lied repeatedly about the game, and Pete lied repeatedly about the game before it came out, and that they came out this year, and their great plan to save the game was literally a battle royale. None of that matters. Starfield's going to be great. People are already sold. And that's the luxury that Hello Games never had. They didn't have franchise and IP to fall back on like these other studios. So these other studios don't really need to fix their games. They could. They can put some hand-waving gestures at it, which is exactly what Bethesda's doing. Hey, we're going to add NPCs now. I'm sure that's going to be a smooth transition. They're going to shoehorn in some NPCs, and that's going to be their big solution. Just like they shoehorned in a battle. I still can't believe there's a battle royale mode in Fallout 76 after all of the people who were laughing at the notion last year. That still is just hilarious to me. But moving on. So when Sean Murray's big advice to these other companies is that they should just keep their mouth shut, actions speak louder than words. Well, yes, Sean, you're correct about that. Actions do speak louder than words. But your advice to them that they should just not say anything, don't communicate with the people, just do the work, put it out, and then talk about it. While I understand what you're trying to say, the real issue is that you wouldn't have to shut off all communication with the community. You wouldn't have to shut out the player base entirely and focus on fixing the game if you would actually just stop over-promising on stuff that you know isn't actually in the game yet. Stop telling us about stuff and features that are going to be in your games unless they're actually up and running and functioning. Unless you have it already in the game, don't promise it. How's that? Then you wouldn't have to do the silent treatment. Then you wouldn't have to have roadmaps to keep the fans interested. You wouldn't have to have 2-3 years worth of updates after your game came out to actually provide the features that you were promising, the ones that you sold your product on. See, I still have a problem with the notion that everyone is just going to forgive Sean Murray and Hello Games for outright lying 4 years about the product, and they try to hide it behind, oh, we were just overly enthusiastic. I'm sure you were quite enthusiastic when millions upon millions of dollars were rolling into your studio coffers. I'm quite sure you were excited about that. And they can complain, they say they got a lot of hate mail. I'm sure they did. I'm absolutely sure they did. I have never sent any hate mail to anyone. I've never sent any sort of threatening letter to any developer. I would never do that. And I would never recommend or accept anyone else doing that. I think that's wrong to do. But I'm sorry. You fleeced the public to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. I'm not going to feel bad that you received hate mail for that. I'm really not. I don't care what your intentions are. I don't care. I only care. You say actions speak louder than words? Well, you can tell me any sob story you want, Sean Murray, about how you were naive, how you didn't understand the gravity of the situation. You can tell me anything you want, but your actions tell me that you actually lied 4 years about your product right up until the game launched. Booking late-night TV shows, hyping your game, lying in those interviews still. It doesn't matter. Actions speak louder than words, Sean. Yes, they do. And your actions showed me that so far I really can't trust you. I don't care that you fix the game later. It's still not fully what you promised. So, until that day, maybe then we can talk at that point, and still, you're very late to the party. I know this has been brought up many times, but there's no other industry that can delay delivering a product to the consumers in a quality finished state the way the game industry seems to be able to do. The worst part about it is how many people defend them for it and praise them for it after the fact. Which is the problem I have every time Sean Murray's name comes up, is that now everyone has to act like he's a good guy. Just because he fixed the game that he had to fix in order to keep his company viable. Bethesda, BioWare, any of these other companies, they don't have to do that. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Doesn't really matter at the end of the day. That's not the purpose of my video. That's what everyone else was talking about. But I want to talk about the Sean Murray situation and the sheer audacity of the fact that he thinks that he's in a position where he can give out advice to everyone else just because he got some mean mail and some nasty emails after fleecing the public and lying to them 4 years. Anyway, that's it for me, Coach Toolshed. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Please subscribe. If you want to stay in tune with the channel, head forward. And as always, keep it turned to 11.